He got an arm around me and half carried me down the porch steps and toward his car. George the rooster was lying frozen to the ground beside the woodpile, and the cows were lowing. When had I last fed them? I couldn't remember. Sheriff, you have too. But he cut me off. He thought I was raving, and why not? He could feel the fever baking off me and see it glowing in my face. It must have been like carrying an oven. You need to save your strength. And you need to be grateful to Arlette, because I never would have come out here if not for her. Dead, I managed. Yes. She's dead, all right. So then I told him I'd killed her, and oh, the relief. A plugged pipe inside my head had magically opened, and the infected ghost which had been trapped in there was finally gone. He slung me into his car like a bag of meal. We'll talk about Arlette, but right now I'm taking you to Angels of Mercy, and I'll thank you not to upchuck in my car. As he drove out of the dooryard, leaving the dead rooster and lowing cows behind, and the rats. Don't forget them. Ha, I tried to tell him again that it might not be too late for Henry and Shannon, that it still might be possible to save them. I heard myself saying these are things that may be, as if I were the spirit of Christmas yet to come in the Dickens story. Then I passed out. When I woke up, it was the 2nd of December, and the Western newspapers were reporting sweetheart bandits elude Elko police, escape again. They hadn't, but no one knew that yet. Except Arlette, of course. And me. The doctor thought the gangrene hadn't advanced up my forearm, and gambled my life by amputating only my left hand. That was a gamble he won. 5 days after being carried into Hemmingford City's Angels of Mercy Hospital by Sheriff Jones, I lay wan and ghostly in a hospital bed, 25 pounds lighter and minus my left hand, but alive. Jones came to see me, his face grave. I waited for him to tell me he was arresting me for the murder of my wife, and then handcuff my remaining hand to the hospital bedpost. But that never happened. Instead, he told me how sorry he was for my loss. My loss? What did that idiot know about loss? Why am I sitting in this mean hotel room, but not alone, instead of lying in a murderer's grave? I'll tell you in 2 words, my mother. Like Sheriff Jones, she had a habit of peppering her conversation with rhetorical questions. With him, it was a conversational device he'd picked up during a lifetime in law enforcement. He asked his silly little questions, then observed the person he was talking to for any guilty reaction, a wince, a frown, a small shift of the eyes. With my mother, it was only a habit of speech she had picked up from her own mother, who was English, and passed on to me. I've lost any faint British accent I might once have had, but never lost my mother's way of turning statements into questions. "You'd better come in now, hadn't you?" she'd say. "Or your father forgot his lunch again. You'll have to take it to him, won't you?" Even observations about the weather came couched as questions. "Another rainy day, isn't it?" Although I was feverish and very ill when Sheriff Jones came to the door on that late November day, I wasn't delirious. I remember our conversation clearly, the way a man or woman may remember images from a particularly vivid nightmare. "You need to be grateful to Arlette, because I never would have come out here if not for her," he said. "Dead," I replied. "Sheriff Jones, she's dead, all right." And then, speaking as I had learned to speak at my mother's knee, "I killed her, didn't I?" Sheriff Jones took my mother's rhetorical device, and his own, don't forget, as a real question. Years later, it was in the factory where I found work after I lost the farm. I heard a foreman berating a clerk for sending an order to Des Moines instead of Davenport before the clerk had gotten the shipping form from the front office. "But we always send the Wednesday orders to Des Moines," the soon-to-be-fired clerk protested. "I simply assumed." "Assume makes an ass out of you and me," the foreman replied. An old saying, I suppose, but that was the first time I heard it. And is it any wonder that I thought of Sheriff Frank Jones when I did? My mother's habit of turning statements into questions saved me from the electric chair. I was never tried by a jury for the murder of my wife. Until now, that is. They're here with me, a lot more than 12, lined up along the baseboard all the way around the room, watching me with their oily eyes.